So welcome. Here's what I want to start with. If you don't take a stand for something or commit to something, you're in the business of survival. What do I mean by that? How is that related to conflict resolution? We're going to be in an inquiry tonight. But before that, you may be asking, some of you just met me, and who am I? So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Daneshrad. I'm a certified family law specialist. I'm a collaborative divorce attorney and a mediator. I'm the founder of San Fernando Valley Collaborative Professionals. We're a team of professionals of 19 collaborative lawyers, mental health professionals, and financial experts. And we provide a collaborative process, which you're going to get an idea of how it's different. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're just going to talk about the basics of conflict resolution. And the best way to start is, what is conflict? When I say conflict, what do you think that is? What is your interpretation of conflict? I'm going to introduce you a new perspective about conflict. But before we do that, how many of you think conflict is bad or shouldn't be, or we should try to avoid conflict or prevent it? What is your view of conflict? What is your relationship to conflict? Now, I want to give you a distinction that perhaps there is an already way that we relate to. What I mean by already way that we relate to, it's default, it's natural, it's normal, how we relate to conflict. In the realm of competition. So now I want us to think about that what's already there when we're dealing with conflict is competition. And I want you to consider that it has something to do, in this realm of competition, it has something to do with survival. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's think about it a little bit. I have pieces of paper. If you could pick a piece of paper, and if you need a pen, we'll give you a pen. Think about a person in your life that you find yourself having a lot of conflicts with. Okay. How many of you have some people in your life that you experience you have conflicts with? No. Okay, so we're going to look at that. Go ahead and write that for yourself. You don't have to share this or turn it in or anything like that. This is just for you. Now write down your thoughts about that person. What are your opinions about that person? What are your emotions about that person? Now I want you to ask yourself, where do these thoughts, emotions, opinions, judgments come from? Think about it. Is there someone else in your past that you had those feelings, thoughts about? Or is it just with this person? Can you remember who else in your life right now or in the past you have those thoughts, feelings, or judgments about? Is this a pattern? Perhaps there is a pattern that is specific to you with respect to dealing with conflicts. So when some brain studies have said. So, you know, how we relate to people and situations have everything to do with how we perceive the people and situations. Yes? Now, where do our perceptions come from? 10%, maximum 20% of what we perceive have to do with reality. Our brain makes up 80% of what we perceive. So when I say survival, we are designed to survive. We're organisms, human beings. Our design is to survive. So how are we designed? How, as a mechanism, are we designed? Well, as we deal with situations, when we're a child, we're young people, and what happens, there's patterns, behaviors, things, situations that we deal with, and our brain makes a pattern of that. This happened, and then you make a decision how to deal with it, and that gets recorded in your brain. Now I want you to consider, don't you just feel like you act like a little child in conflicts? Doesn't that happen? Like, my gosh, people turn into children. Why? Because we first faced conflicts when we were little, and we made decisions, and those decisions are recorded. And nothing I say consider as truth, just to examine as a possibility so that we can then explore what choices we have dealing with conflicts. So if we know and we recognize there is an automatic way of behavior designed to make us survive and protect us, and it comes from when we were little and the decisions we made, then, and what we are reacting to is not even really what's happening, is all the things that maybe happened to us before that those reactions come about. For example, I'll just give you an example. Let's say when you were like 8 years old and you have your first boyfriend or girlfriend, and this person tells you they love you, and then the next day they leave you for another person. So what do you think happens the next time you get into a relationship and that person tells you they love you? Automatically, you feel very uncomfortable about that. This person's going to leave you. Kind of an example of how we react, we feel, we think, we see things based on what happened before. So if we know that what we perceive is not 100% of what's really happening, then we can be responsible for it. Now, how are we going to do that, right? There are different ways to do that. This is our first meeting about conflict resolution. But we will go through the pathway of how to go from here, which is competition, as a way of dealing with conflict, which is survival mode. If you remove competition, here you are, I want you to imagine a conflict. Yeah, I know you have a conflict written down in your paper, whoever that person is, whoever that situation is. Okay, if you remove the competition, what's there? If you are dealing with a conflict, then there's a conflict of interest. It's what's good for me and what's good for you are not the same. We had some examples of what you guys said. Misunderstandings, right? Things that you understand are different from what I understand, fighting, disagreements. But that's a great question. Let's look at it. How is competition? Why are you saying, Michelle, conflict and competition go together automatically? Why is that? I brought up for you to consider that we automatically relate to conflicts in the world of competition. That's a new distinction. That's not what we think. What we think really is that this person is wrong and I'm right, this person is doing me wrong, and what am I entitled to? What's, all of that. What's right, what's wrong, what do I agree, what do I disagree, different opinions, emotionally charged. There's two things that people deal with in conflict. And we were talking about avoiding. Some people just wait and hope for it to go away, and then problems get bigger. Some people try to please and take care of the other person, so they don't look out for their own interest. Some people fight. It's all their interest. So there's some competition between interests. First of all, just looking at how we deal with it, and it becomes about competing interests, and then look at how can we step outside of this normal reaction that's past-based, that's in our wiring, that's automatic, that are the patterns of behavior that we automatically deal with in conflicts, that we don't usually, not really productive. It's about survival, defense mechanism, protecting. So I want you to consider that this is about, competition is about individual. Not bad or wrong, but it's individual based. How do I protect me, my interest, what I want? It's based on individual. Okay? Now, how could we step out of this mechanism, automatic mechanism? So first be conscious about, okay, I'm reacting. I'm thinking this person is trying to do this, or this person did this to me. That's being conscious of this mechanism. Yes? Very good. First thing is being conscious about what's happening. Oh, I'm perceiving this happening right now. And I'm just going that's a huge thing. That doesn't normally happen, right? We really believe somebody did something wrong. We don't think about, oh, we're just seeing the way we're seeing, and it's not necessarily reality. We don't do that. That's not normal. I want us to explore something that's not normal, that's extraordinary, that will have us be powerful in face of conflict. And just to give you a perspective about conflict, right? Now, so if it's not competition, and if it's, then what could be? And I'm just giving you, again, a point of view. I'm not telling you to adopt something as true, but at a point of view, so you have choices. So if we're not dealing with conflict in the realm of competition, and we step beyond our emotions, thoughts, judgments, because we know they're all come from the past, then I want to introduce you to the realm of expansion. What is expansion? It's expanding from individual to community. What does that mean? If I'm designed to protect myself, to defend myself, that's my design. And that's why I have behaviors and reactions consistent with that, right, that we talked about. Then I know myself as an individual. Now, this is huge, guys. It's a little bit confronting, and I get that, okay? To know yourself as individual and expand to knowing yourself as community. What does that mean? Like, I am not, imagine, okay? If your child is sick, you know your child as part of you. You don't say, I have to go take care of this child now. I won't have time to go watch TV or do whatever I feel like, right? It just becomes natural to you to just go ahead and take care of the child. It's natural, it's normal, it's just something you do, right? Yep. Because you've expanded yourself as not just your individual, but also including the child is a part of you. Yesterday I was at an event when they were talking about a company who was making, who expanded to the point of making $200,000 a year. That's what they were making, and they just were not expanding from that. And what happened is, after they stepped outside and looked from the outside, they were able to expand to millions of dollars in a very short period of time, because they expanded not from growing from within, but from growing by including others, right? Taking and including other businesses and practices in their business, right? So expanding, knowing yourself as the individual to community, it's really a conscious choice of I am not this person, I am this group, whether it's my workplace, this is me. I am my workplace, or I am this family, or I include me and this person that I'm dealing with, that I'm having a conflict with. You literally choose to be inclusive, to not be. That's what I'm talking about by expansion. Inside of expansion and inside of knowing yourself as community, then what's possible? What else do you see possible? Tell me what you're dealing with. Like, conflict is awesome. Conflict is great. Without conflict, I don't know if there would be much living. But then but conflict would be an opportunity to expand. Conflict would be an opportunity for new things to happen. Because you said reverse roles means then you're including the other person's perspective, but not with an attitude of, I want to know what you're thinking so I can convince you to do it my way. No, it's more about, I want to hear your perspective because it will expand my point of view and I can see things that I couldn't see by myself. But it does take, it does take consciousness about your own wiring, your own reaction, owning your own mechanism, and then stepping into being bigger than who you are. Now, if you were doing that, I asked you guys to write down examples of conflicts. If you apply that, what do you see? Consider there is no communication in this realm. This is where we are naturally drawn to deal with conflicts, in the realm of competition. There cannot be communication in this realm. Why? Because you're listening as a strategy to get your way. You're not really listening to get the other person's perspective. If you're playing the game of litigation, that's competition. Even in mediation, it's competition. So you are saying my client's interest versus your client's interest, and let's compete. That's normal. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's bad. But there's a possibility, which is that's why we designed a collaborative process, because it's a different game. The game of collaborative process is not competition game. It is where the counsel for the other person helps to give the perspective for the other person, because when you put the perspectives together, then you can see a lot more than just one person's perspective. Consider the winning. Oh, this is great. Okay. Consider it becomes about winning. When you have a conflict, all your survival mechanism comes, the survival mechanism is driven to win for the other, win as against the other person. You lose sight of what matters to you, what's really important to you, because it becomes about winning. It becomes about survival. It becomes about competition. It will not necessarily address what you really care about. If that's what happens. Listen, we can go to I will use the child example. When you're angry at the child, how many times I don't know how many of you have ever been parents. Anybody who's never been parents here? We've all been parents. Now, I bet you there were times you got angry and you said something that you would have never said if you were thinking and choosing what to say. But you said in a reaction, and this is your child, and you said something you regret because it was hurtful. Because when in the realm of conflict, we're designed to compete, and it has nothing to do about what we really care about. So in the competition, it's about certain things. It's very limited what you're addressing, and it's a context of competition. But in the realm of expansion and community, then you have the opportunity, because there's no competition here. This is what's transformational. When you take out the competition, then what are you really dealing with? You're really dealing with interests. You're really dealing with what matters to people. We're really having the people focus on that. We're helping as counselors people to be focused. Oh, I care about, I want to do what I've never done before, which start a new business. Do they even think about it in conflict? No. I want to make sure that my children are getting the support they need and the best education they need. Do they even think about that? No. They're fighting over which parent was the worst parent. If this is our natural way of dealing with conflict inside of competition, I want you to consider our legal system and the litigation process was designed inside of the competition. So of course, then we're talking about who's going to have custody. We're going to have a competition about custody. We're going to have competition about child support. It's designed because it's normal. We're not doubting. We're not saying it's wrong. That's just fundamentally how we deal with conflicts in the realm of competition. And inside that realm, it's very natural and appropriate to create litigation process, which is competing interests. But if you take out, we're just being audacious, and we're saying inside of conflict, we say, I am adversarial, I am competing, because that's how I'm designed. I have emotions, thoughts, and judgments that come from a pattern to protect this individual, and I can stop. I can notice it. I can notice my anger. I can notice my judgments, and I can say, okay, I can stop and start growing a muscle of being community inclusive. And sometimes I need support. In conflicts, where are we designed to compete? There's a conflict in the marriage. They're going through divorce. There's the survival mode. There's the competing interest. So it's difficult for them to go be here, which is best for them. So we as attorneys are their hope, not in litigation process, but in the collaborative process. Even in our legal system, parties can agree to anything they agree to. It doesn't have to go within the limits of what the law says. The law is just for people who can't work it out for themselves. So it's not there to limit them. If it wasn't for litigation, I would not be here. Litigation is very necessary, and I'm grateful for that. But I just want you guys to get that there is a choice, an option that we can provide ourselves and others.